Day 6 of the April 98 7-day retreat in Springwater. Are we here? Breathing? Birds singing? A fan humming? Hands touching each other? Or the legs? The knees? Sensations throughout the body? And listening? Thoughts? Expectation? Wanting? Fearing? One whole listening space. Several people said to me yesterday, "Today your talk was somewhat different." What was it? Maybe it's this. Not really wanting to talk about things, about myself and you and the world and the birds. Just trying to share being here together in a new way. Which is not easy because most of the words used are old or sound old. We already know what they mean. They have already created all kinds of networks in the mind which seem to prevent being here, beyond the words and their meaning, looking directly. And yet it's not impossible, it happens. That suddenly there's a realization, this is it, not the word. Often when this happens, people will say to me, "Why didn't you ever say this before?" It's a beautiful, beautiful demonstration. When this mind is open, everything is new, including old words. And what they point at, seen freshly, doesn't matter whether it's painful or pleasant. What matters is the discovery, the seeing, the sun coming through. It would be the easiest and simplest not to say anything and to sit here listening together. And yet, Most of us find it is helpful when somebody speaks out of looking and listening clearly, fairly clearly. It may help to reveal what goes on in ourselves and to be with it. Or it may help to increase our misunderstandings. This occupational hazard to create misunderstandings. That's why we have meetings and groups, so we can air our whatever our understanding is or not understanding. Look at it anew. Hear what other people say. And hear oneself. This is what most people say is the most helpful thing in group meetings, to become very aware of one's own reactions and reactiveness and judgmentalness. Sometimes ex post facto, meaning somebody will say, yesterday I said such a dumb thing, I felt so bad afterwards. I was so self-centered, or this or that. Judgment. And remembering what the person said, I didn't feel it was like that at all. There was some substance to it, some helpful contribution. But it happens, and let's observe it dispassionately, that after we say something, thoughts arise. Was that dumb? That was dumb. I shouldn't have said it. I was selfish. And now believing all of these later thoughts. We're so easily bowled over by our own thoughts and those of others. It becomes very confusing. The memory of what happened with the thoughts about what happened. Confusion. So to let it all go. We can't get at truth by thinking about it. Is that so? Is thought convinced it can't get at thought, at truth, by more and more and more thinking? Several people raised this question. If, as you say, attention is there all the time or comes on its own, why is it such effort to be attentive? At the end of the day, I'm exhausted, people say. And I remember myself in the early years feeling I'd never done more exhausting work than trying to be attentive. At that time it was to a koan, keeping that in the mind. Included fighting the distractions, which would come anyways. Also, another branch of this question is, if nothing needs to be done in this awareness, why are we coming here? when such questions arise, are we just hurling them at someone else to deal with it? There may be emotion that goes with it, some kind of irritation, frustration with the whole thing. Or can it be a question that sits there inviting to look, to wonder, to listen? Why am I coming here? Why am I sitting down quietly? If, as you say, there's nothing to be achieved, nothing to be attained, nothing to be gotten, why do it? And ultimately, this question has to be asked of oneself, not of another, because we have touched upon the danger of resting comfortably in explanations for a while, as long as they reverberate in the memory. And then the discontent arises again. Not just with sitting, but with everything we do. Not everything for everybody. There are things we love to do. And a lot of energy goes into what we love to do. And the question doesn't arise, why put all this energy into it? It just goes with loving something, arouses energy, being with. But most of the time, there is half-heartedness, sometimes no-heartedness with what we're doing, and at the same time dreaming, fantasizing, dialoguing or monologuing. Which seems to be less energy expenditure than stopping, looking and listening. What's going on? This kind of a movement, the movement of stopping, sounds paradox. Not going with the movement of habitual dreaming and thinking and dialoguing, I mean, in the head, but stopping, wondering. That seems to be an energy all its own. Not going with the current, with the habitual energy of the current, but stopping in the current and beginning to watch the current. It elicits, mobilizes a new kind of energy, a different kind of energy, which is experienced at times as real effort, because the tendency is I want to go with the current of my habitual thoughts and reactions. There's a great addiction to that. Yesterday we talked about the intoxication of going with habitual thought movements, fantasy streams, which cause pleasure in the body, even the pleasure of pain. We become addicted to that too. We may not feel it as pleasure, but why does the brain keep thinking of unpleasant things? But we're not going into that right now. We're just stating the fact that this takes place. A powerful tendency to go with a habit. The inertia of going with the habitual movement, not wanting to change. When we sit, we don't want to get up. When we're up, we do want to sit down. But we don't want to do something different from normal, usual. A good deal of the time, not always. As I said, the moment you open your mouth, you already don't say the whole thing right. Because there's always something else to be said, and another angle, another point of view. So please, let's all be patient with each other. Realize you can never say the whole thing, you can only be the whole thing. Whether we know it or not, we are the whole thing. The urge to move with a habit, and wonder of wonders, the stopping, looking and listening and wondering what this is all about, myself and you and the world. So the effort and exhaustion that we experience, particularly in the beginning, of doing this, quote unquote, this stopping, looking and listening in the midst of the stream, powerful stream of habit, it feels exhausting. It feels exhausting not to go with what is comfortable, soothing, sort of embedding. But not to believe in these instant evaluations or hints that come, don't do it, go with this, or don't do it, go with that. To just begin to hear this all as tapes from the past. They don't need to be heeded, because there's a real urge in each one of us, a real inherent curiosity to find out what we are and what things are around us. And within us. How shall I put it? The patience to bear with all the difficulties and not make too much out of them, verbally, emotionally. Just to be with what's there. Not believe in these deep-seated assumptions what's there is going to be there forever. It's not true. Being with pain, disorientation, or frazzledness, lack of concentration, being with it all. People report about the problems they have in sitting and not realize that something was observing all of that. There was awareness of all of that. How else would one be able to remember it, to talk about it? It's amazing, isn't it? How much emphasis in the way we live and talk to each other, how much emphasis is put on that which we see and hear and feel, and none on this incredible capacity to aware it all. To see it, to hear it, to feel it as a neutral process. And maybe every once in a while this switch happens on its own, being with awareness and not with all the stuff that comes up, hurts or pleasures, and disappears again. Beholding it all. Which gives this body-mind an incredible opportunity to realign itself from its habitual flowings with habit, wanting, fearing, self-centered thinking, self-centered action. It's not so judgmentally, just factually. Realign from just that to beholding it, awareing it. And I think it's because this is happening, this being with all the stuff, good and bad, light and heavy, joyful and painful, being with it all, which there isn't any choice but to do it in a retreat, is why most people come back. Because as one leaves this place, maybe for a while, for some people longer than for others, there is an immediacy that one hadn't known before. The immediacy of a wet driveway, gravel sparkling, and seeing the movement of trees in the wind, hearing the birds sing the way they haven't been heard before, because there has been some learning in this organism to be with what's there, no matter what. So, if awareness is there all the time, why is it so hard to realize that truth? That question is in our minds, isn't it? And how are we asking our why? With irritation? Maybe there. Letting the irritation go, because an irritation cannot discern what's going on. Seeing it, awareing it, letting go. Why ask the question? To get an answer? To have an explanation? So I feel better about myself because I feel guilty that if this awareness is there all the time, why don't I see it? This is the other tricky thing about talks and reading books. It is just oozing with stuff that I feel I ought to be able to do. So the job of a talk is to put it all out and then to take it all back. Or say, no, it's not so. It's not, you're supposed to do that. Let's share it. Maybe we can share it this moment. And it does happen. It does happen. Just like in a month or so, there will be fireflies all over the meadows. Bing, 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 bing. A light shining here and there, and you never know where. It shines. So, can we begin to ask a question without irritation, even though that may have been one of the motivators of it, without trying to get comfort in an answer, but allowing this question to operate in our lives? if there's really some fire lit in this question, why is it so difficult to be aware? Someone says or writes, that's here all the time. Why isn't it for me? And in that there is no self-accusation or self-evaluation that is seen and let go, because it is fog and smog. Just let this fire or this ember burn, and there will be more watching. Not watching awareness. Awareness is unwatchable. Can watch awareness. It sees. It's not to be seen. But it throws light on all the stuff that burdens human beings like you and me. The fears, the guilts, the pains, the angers and rages, and envies and jealousies, and joys and loves. It irradiates it all. To be seen, to be examined, to be moving with it. Somebody yesterday in a meeting said, this is what happens with me. Something arises, a fear or an anger, and I'll let it meander all over the place, wherever it will, as far as it will go. And then, if I remember right what he said, it finds its own border, beyond which it doesn't go. Somebody else said it flattens out. Now, when something like this happens, what happens? Is that just when the fear has flattened out or the anger has reached its border and finishes, is finished? Is there such an enormous relief that thought sort of sprinkles all over the place? I got it. I want to keep this. How did I do it? Or can there be a learning of remaining quiet? It could be real happiness over the relief. The shoe that was too tight is off. Feels great. For a while. After a while, if you don't put shoes on again, or shoes that are big enough, you won't feel this relief anymore that came from the tight shoe. I'm sprinkling all over the place too. So, at a moment of what has been felt and seen and observed and followed and let it go wherever it wants to, and it finishes, it's ended, is no longer there to be seen. Can there be a moment of nothing? Not an idea or concept of nothing. That can be depressing for some people. For others it's a very happy concept. Not the concept of nothing, but truly no mental activity. Because it's felt and seen to be stirring up the pond again. For a moment it's cleared. Mental activity about what was, how nice it was, how bad it was, how good, and etc. brings up the mud again, and the clarity seems to disappear. Although the moon is still shining, it's not reflecting in the pool, but it's still there, even if there are clouds and mud in the pool. It's not easy, because again it's the stream of habit to go with a commenting and reacting, and then to stop, look and listen as soon as it happens, and let go of the reaction, good or bad, and be with the breathing and the sensing and whatever is there freshly. It's a fresh moment. It's never been here before. So, not to get trapped in the thought that I could see awareness, or get it, have it, own it, keep it. It's here, but it is not graspable, keepable for this me circuit. Can't grasp it, can only think about it. And yet, in thinking about awareness, is there awareness of that? Awareness of thinking, and of breathing, and of birds singing, and of sun shining. All happening at the same time. Let go of the desire to catch awareness, to catch our true nature, to catch enlightenment. It's an impossible task and an unnecessary task. Plane is humming. Somebody said something like, "It's not easy to be here because I feel you're taking everything away." It's also an impossible task to take everything away, because everything is here. It's ours, if you see it right. Not mine in the small sense. Nobody's, everybody's. There's nothing to be taken away, only seen through our illusions and the clinging, the attaching, and the fear of losing. To see it lightly, lighting it up. Not violently, I must renounce, I must give up. Or hearing the speaker say, you must give up, you must renounce. That's misunderstanding. There's only one way, and that's seeing lightly what's there. Lightly and vastly. Which is also there when this enclosure, this me network, is seen for what it is. Then it can feel as though a plug was pulled out of it. The electricity, the energy doesn't travel in there, it just gathers here in being, undivided. one humanity, one earth, one cosmos. Not the thought about it, which talking like this evokes in the brain, does it? But this palpitating aliveness right now, which knows no borders. No time. We will end here for today.